Welcome back, dudes. The Divination brings you more Xanathar guides to everything. Today we're going to talk about Wizard, Warlock, and maybe a couple other cool things about Xanathar's guide that we thought picked out to us. So stay tuned. So Brandon, what did you think about the Warlock?
I like the Warlock. It only gets 2 patrons, but they're both good. For different reasons, they both have very different flavor. The Celestial Patron, first off, is obviously some type of angelic power. I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be angelic. It feels good. They're about healing and stuff like that. That's not to say that you couldn't be an evil Celestial Warlock and still do some healing. It's not necessarily worded that it is inherently good. It's just radiant, which is generally associated with good.
Sure.
You get the expanded spell list, so you can choose spells like Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Flaming Sphere, Lesser Restoration, things like that. Cleric-y things that you wouldn't generally have access to as a Warlock, and you get Light and Sacred Flame as just bonus cantrips, which is great because cantrips are very powerful, and you have a very limited amount of them. So anything extra that you get that you don't need to burn a slot on a cantrip like Light, good
Super
with me.
huge. Super huge. And to your point, I really like how 5e has taken generic classes like Warrior, Paladin, Warlock, and they've really kind of shaken them up to where, okay, you don't need to necessarily get your powers from a demon to get your Warlock powers. You know, you can get it in the examples here. You can get it from like a Solar or a Unicorn to get the Celestial power. So it's really just unique and different how they're trying to incorporate all aspects. And, you know, I mean, we've said it with like the Paladin before, like the Paladin Oath of Conquest, that does not feel like a Paladin to me.
No.
So I like how they're making you think differently about maybe some one-trick pony type classes.
Yeah, and Warlock is a pretty new class to
True.
D&D. I think it made its debut in 3.5, maybe. It was
Something
core in 4, and then it's core again.
Which it should be. It
is a different enough spellcaster to where it should have its own class.
And not only that, it adds that variety to spellcasters, because like we said in our sorcerer video, wizards and sorcerers, they're so close. I don't want to offend anyone, but they're pretty much the same thing. I mean, nuts
just
and bolts.
Mechanically, right. They're gonna get the same hit die. They're gonna be as ineffective at attacking as each other. Not as much in 5e, but
Still.
Yeah, they share a spell list, but
Yeah.
they're very different at the same time.
Yes. And not to confuse you, the Warlock is just nice because it just gives you a different background, which, you know, for a lot of players, background is important to play. So
Right. And Warlock is pretty different than the Wizard and Sorcerer in like its proficiencies. Warlocks typically wear light armor, things like that. They get spells that the Wizard and Sorcerer don't get. They're all about Eldritch Blast. There's like a great Warlock build that is about that. I could talk about the Warlock for a long time. The Celestial, however, Warlock does not rely so much on Eldritch Blast.
No, they feel a lot more like a cleric, but yet still holding on to the damagey spells that a generic Warlock would have. So, I mean, you can still cast your, like, Eldritch Bolts and things like that. But then you also get, like you said, for the spell list, you get Cure Light Wounds, and then at 6th level, you get Radiant Soul. 1st level, you get Healing Light.
And Healing Light is really good.
Yes.
You heal just as effectively as a cleric. And that just sort of follows the 5e tradition of adding like healer variants. So it's no more like, oh, we need a healer in the party, somebody better be a cleric.
Yeah, you're no longer forced to, all right, so you have 3 party slots that are open and one person has to play a healer. You know, you can play these half roles is kind of like how we see them.
Right.
To where you're half what you want to be and half still support the party.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Healing Light, you gain a pool of D6s equal to 1 plus your Warlock level. And you can spend them a number of dice at a time equal to your Charisma modifier and heal people within 60 feet. And like team that with spells like Cure Wounds and stuff, you're going to be a pretty effective healer.
Right, and that's just a pool. That's not even like a spell. That's just like your own healing pool that you get when you go and you be a Celestial Warlock.
Right.
So at 10th level, you also get Celestial Resilience, which is just after a rest. You gain temporary hit points to you and your party. You gain more, obviously, because you're a Warlock, and you're a little bit selfish. But, you still kind of share with your party. You're nice enough, right?
Well, I mean, it makes sense. You're the one that is, you're the one that has a Celestial Patron. Your party doesn't necessarily share that same thing, so your patron is going to reward you, and, like, you are in turn rewarding your party, is how I sort of see it.
Yeah, definitely. And then their 14th level ability, I noticed that the Warlocks cap out with these new packs at 14th level. You get Searing Vengeance, which is just a powerful healing surge, it looks like. You regain hit points equal to half your maximum, and then you deal 2d8 plus charisma damage to... Or radiant damage, not charisma damage, but...
That would be awesome. 16 charisma damage.
You kill half your party with that. Well, the fighter's dead, and the barbarian's not in the last leg.
You deal 2d8 plus charisma modifier radiant damage. And blind people.
Yeah, to each creature within 30 feet of your choice. So you don't have to target your party members. Luckily... it's not that much of a jerk.
It's it's a little underwhelming. It's nice that it triggers when you have to make a death saving throw because it's like an auto stabilize.
Right.
The damage at 14th level, I mean, 2d8 plus probably 5 by then is meh, but
the blinded
blinded is
status?
good. Blinded is blinded's going to give you another round to kind of position and do some more battlefield control stuff.
And not only that, but all your party members get to, you might have to stand up and, walk away, but all of them, they get free attacks with advantage and other things, so it's just a good thing.
Yeah, and I mean, the Celestial Patron is good all around. It gives the Warlock access to some things that the Warlock doesn't generally have access to, at the sort of expense of like the raw damage that a lot of Warlocks bring to the table. You're less blasty, like borrowing from the 4E term, you're less of a striker, and you become like a lot more well-rounded.
Yeah, in which it seems like 5e wants that, especially since the core group, which you think about it as a 4-party member adventuring group, having 4 party members that can do half things kind of gives you 6 classes worth of things because you can kind of round yourself out.
Yeah, and it's not always better to have everybody be well-rounded, but if you want to have one person fill multiple roles or 2 people fill multiple roles, if you don't have a healer in the party and you have 2 secondary healers,
that seems pretty that's good too.
It's not just options are good.
Yes.
Options are good.
Speaking of options, let's talk about the only option for Warlock.
Right. Really, when you think of a Warlock, this is me personally. This is what I think of. I think of the Hexblade, the Gish, he's got his sword and he's got his spell and he's ready to wade into combat and he's gonna be a glass cannon and he's gonna hopefully do more damage than you do to him and you die before he does.
Right, but
I'm taking a drink.
The Hexblade curse is the first level thing, which is really cool. You critical roll against someone, you hex them, and when you crit on them on a 19 or 20, so you expand your crit range by a little bit, and when they die, you gain health equal to your proficiency modifier, or no, not you gain health equal to your Warlock level plus your charisma modifier. And you also gain you get your proficiency to damage rolls as well. So you hit harder, you crit harder, and you gain health when he dies.
Yeah, it's like a mark basically.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can only do it once until after a short or long rest at early levels. Later, at higher levels, you can transfer your mark from person to person, which is really cool for a...
And things that recover after a short rest are almost at will things.
Oh, yeah.
Almost.
They're encounter powers, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, that's a 4E term, which a lot of people are probably like, ew, 4E.
Buy my 4E stuff on eBay.
So the Hexblade's Curse kind of goes into the Hex Warrior, to where you gain proficiency with your medium and medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. So the idea is that you are a tankier, harder hitting warlock spellcaster.
Sure.
Who is, your main goal is to hex people enough to where you can hit them with your sword and kill them.
Yeah, and if we take a step back, the Hexblade has an expanded spell list as well. They get things that are going to help keep them alive in combat a little bit, like shield, blur, blink, things like that. And they have some offensive ones too, Wrathful Smite, elemental weapon, things like that. But shield, blur, blink, good combo for someone who's not going to necessarily have the hit points of the fighter or the paladin or the barbarian.
Right? They might have the AC, at
maybe
a little bit, but the
medium armor helps.
Yeah, and then not only that, but then after they get hit, they can be like, okay, I blink or I blur. Like just extra defenses to where, like Brandon said, you don't necessarily have the hit points to soak, so just burn a spell slot.
Right. Now that I interrupted you, I'll finish what you were saying about Hex Warrior. Hex Warrior gets their charisma to attack instead of strength or dex, which probably going to want to have some dex. Strength might not be the best thing for you, so just taking away that multi-ability is always good. You can focus more in one thing and be effective in multiple things by focusing in one thing. That's really effective.
Right? Especially since Warlock... any class that requires you to go over 3 skills essentially means one of your main skills is going to be lacking, and you're going to be worse off than playing a different character. So by the class feature just saying, hey, you only need to worry about charisma, and then obviously dex for agility, and AC, and
you want some constitution.
Yeah, but Constitution isn't a must. I mean, for a spellcaster, it really, you're kind of like a middle line.
If you're going to be a melee character, you sort of need it because you're going to get hit. Like, there's nothing that you can really do in 5e D&D to pump your AC up to the point where you're like, I'm just going to go in there, I'm going to hunker down, and I'm going to absorb all these blows, and I'm never going to take any damage, just because attacks scale a lot better and faster than AC does.
Yeah, AC caps out attack bonuses, don't. So, anyway, the next cool ability is Armor of Hexes. So this is the one, if you target your person with the Hexblade's Curse and they hit you, you roll a d6. On a 4, 5, or 6, the attack is ignored, no matter what they roll. So even if they crit you and auto kill you, you go, oh no, 4, 5, or 6. Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah,
ignored.
And that's a very it's a very high chance, as you have 50%
right?
mischance essentially on every attack against you, which real solid. Going back to, you're not going to have the hit points to take hits. You're probably not going to take a lot of hits with Armor of Hexes. You're going to hit half as much.
Exactly.
Accursed Spectre is decent. You slay a humanoid and you can cause a specter to rise from it. It gains temporary hit points equal to half your warlock level, and then it just uses the stats in the monster manual of a specter. It gains its own turns, and it obeys your command. It gets a bonus to its attack rolls equal to your charisma modifier. It's really nice. It's going to improve your action economy because essentially it's like you're getting 2 turns now every round because you have your you're going to be controlling your Spectre and yourself. Spectres aren't especially good, but with that extra bonus to hit to your charisma modifier, your Spectre is going to be a lot more effective and probably stay pretty effective even into higher levels.
Right? Especially if you think how adventures and encounters are structured, generally you don't have one thing anymore, especially in 5e. If you're fighting one monster, it maybe has 1-2 turns to survive. So to keep that monster alive longer, you're going to want to put like 2 to 3 minions and then maybe another half heavy hitter in there just to kind of wow round your encounter. So if you knock out a minion real quick, you sway the battle +2 because you're knocking down one of them and adding +1 to you. So just huge.
Right.
And that's their 6th level ability. That is a huge, almost game breaking. Not really, but almost.
At level 6, I mean, it's gonna be real effective at level 6, especially.
Right, because you're at level 6. What, you already have the extra BAB, so or not? You already get the extra attack.
I don't know that warlocks ever get an extra attack, actually.
Oh,
but
I will have to look that.
Yeah,
up.
I don't have my player's handbook handy, but I just going off of memory, I don't think that they do. But you're still gonna do enough damage with all your extra stuff to where you don't need the extra attack.
And then, like I said, Master of Hexes, their 14th level ability. That's where I was saying where you can transfer your hex from multiple person to multiple person after they die, to where before you couldn't. The only stipulation is that they have to be 30 feet from you. So, I mean, you're a midline fighter. As a Warlock, Blade Hexer, there's should be an enemy within 30 feet.
Yeah,
of you.
you're gonna be just as effective in melee as you're gonna be at a range. If an enemy isn't within 30 feet of you, I don't want to say you're doing it wrong, but you're not doing it right.
And then you also get, they add to the Eldritch Invocations.
Eldritch Invocations are really good. I really like Eldritch Invocations, and this book adds a ton. How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of them.
Yeah.
So that is nearly as many as in the core book.
Yeah. And the one that I really liked was the Shroud of Shadow. It is a 15th level Eldritch Invocation, but for at will, without spending a spell slot, you can cast Invisibility. So every turn, you can cast Invisibility, and then if you can get another attack somehow, you get a free attack at advantage. Or every other turn, you get an attack at advantage. That's good for pretty much every Warlock everywhere.
Yeah. I like improved Pact Weapon. It gives you a free magic weapon, essentially. It doesn't really, but it gives you a +1 on attack and damage rolls. Unless it is a magic weapon that already has these. In campaign settings where magic weapons aren't readily available, that +1 on attack, especially on attack. Attack bonuses in 5e are really rare. So being able to get a built-in class feature that gives you a +1 to attack, especially, it works well with the Hexblade because they're going to be using a weapon a lot more than the other Warlocks are.
Sure.
So to have an extra +1, it's just real good. And it's a 7th level one, so you don't got to wait super long to get it.
Yeah. So let's jump into Wizard. Normally we only do...
Wizard is my favorite class.
Yeah, normally we do one class, but Wizard only has one new thing, so let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get wild.
Wild with the Wizard.
I'm taking my shirt off.
No. Okay. So we're going to continue this. So Wizard, they get War Magic as their new class feature, which is neat.
It's evocation and abjuration rolled up into one guy.
Yeah. So you get the class feature, or the class spells you can add are Arcane Deflection, Tactical Wit, Power Surge, Durable Magic, and Deflecting Shroud. Power Surge is really cool, and if you have never read it, I will be explaining it in just a minute, so stay in your seat, or walking, or horseback riding, whatever you say.
I mean, if they've come this far, they're not going to be, wizard. I don't know how many minutes they're going to be in, but you might as well just stick around to the end. This is the last one. You've tortured yourself this long. Arcane Deflection gives you a reaction. There's not a ton of reactions. So I like things that give you reactions because usually, like, your reaction is just nothing. You can always take a reaction, but in most instances, you don't have a reaction to take.
Right.
Unless you have spells in your list that you can use as reactions, which, as a war wizard, you're probably not going to want to do that to save it for your Arcane Deflection. When you're hit by an attack or fail a saving throw, as your reaction, you can add a +2 to your AC or a +4 to your save. That +4 to your save is huge.
Yeah. That's...
Because spell save DC is low. Right. So a +4 to your save, unless you roll awful, is pretty much just an auto success.
That's half the base.
Right?
Yeah, because 8, it used to be 10. 8 is now the new base, so that's half the base spell DC.
Right. The trade-off for that is that you can't cast spells other than cantrips until the end of your next turn. Cantrips are good, not as good as other spells, but if you have already casted a spell this turn, and then you can take your reaction, that's sort of where Tactical Wit comes into play. The other level 2 ability is you can give yourself a bonus to your initiative equal to your intelligence modifier. So as a war wizard, you're going to want to go first, get your big blast out there, and then you can be more defensive for the rest of the round.
Sure. So now to Power Surge. I was reading this ability.
That's why I did 2. I know you were really pumped about
I just
Power
really
Surge.
liked it. So essentially, the idea is you are siphoning off your opponent's spell's power and then later using it in the battle to your own benefit.
Yeah.
So you get a maximum number of power surges equal to your intelligence modifier. Yeah, whatever. You can store that many
Probably
for the
5.
battle. And anytime you dispel magic or counterspell a spell successfully, you gain a power surge. And then after a short rest, you gain a power surge as well. So, but what you can do with it is once per turn, when you deal damage, you can spend a power surge to deal extra force damage equal to half your wizard level. So at level 4, you're dealing 2 extra damage, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're an evocation wizard, you're doing a lot of area of effect spells.
Right.
So just a +2 flat, no die roll needed. Mm-hmm. And again, at 20th level, an extra 10 flat damage that you can do. You know, it's the little thing and the thematic theme to where you're using your opponent's power, you're like grabbing it out of the air, containing it, and then throwing it back in their face. I liked it.
Yeah, it's a good ability. It sort of reminds me of like the Sorcerer's Arcane Pool. I'm a big fan of classes that get a pool of things and they can keep track. Maybe I just like bookkeeping. I don't know. I just
resource management.
Yeah, whatever. You get durable magic, level 10. When you maintain concentration on a spell, you have a +2 to AC and saving throws. Again, another defensive thing. I almost feel like they get more defensive things than they do offensive things because wizards already have a decent array of offense.
They're pretty already explodey as it is. And then their Deflecting Shroud, when you use your Arcane Deflection, you can deal force damage equal to half your wizard level to up to 3 creatures. So, like, you're defending so powerfully, you, like, just throw it back in their face. Like, they kind of remind me almost like a monk to where, like, they're using their opponent's power against them to, like, strike them back. I just think they're really neat. If I ever make a wizard again, I'll probably make a war wizard.
The war wizard. Cool. The war wizard is really different. The war wizard is basically just a more effective abjurer.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I like the abjurer. I always have some abjuration spells in my list. They're good. Just being a straight abjurer, though, like, sort of leaves things to be desired. Yeah, you can probably are going to be making Wall of Fire and cool things like that. But I mean, that's not necessarily that's not an abjuration spell, but it just fits like the abjuration theme. You know what I mean? Like you're a lot more defensive. You're probably not going to pull out a shocking grasp on somebody or anything like that. This is a way to kind of play that defensive, like protective wizard, and also have a lot more blast to throw at your opponents when you get tired of defending.
Yeah. So those are the class features. The rest of the book is just more player backgroundy, how to help you create a character, really flush them out, and then a lot of DM.
A lot of DM stuff. Xanathar is, I mean, the classes go to page. I just had it. The classes go through page 60. So the first 60 pages of the book are all classes, and then there's some background stuff and a couple racial feats, like Elven accuracy is back. And that only goes to page 73, and pretty much the rest of the book.
So 90 plus pages is
DM stuff, yeah. Right? The book itself is 192 pages, I think. It's one of the smaller books, but
yeah. Some of the cool things, they obviously give you more spells and things like that. They give you a lot of random encounter tables, which some people don't like tables. I really like random encounter tables.
They're great for running a game. On the fly. Like if you didn't have time to prep, which I am notorious for not prepping my games. Like I get people at the table and I have like one thing that I want to do, and then I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do in between here. So it's just great to be able to page to these tables and be like, okay, you're in the wilderness, here's a random encounter.
Yeah, and it gives you multiple settings too. So I mean, you have hills, forest, sky, just different things like that. And then obviously flushes out more of the DM side things, so like traps, different effects, wondrous items, more treasure, more of this stuff.
The one thing that I like, to kind of piggyback off that, it has a lot of magic items that are magic, but don't necessarily like have an in-game effect. Like,
sure.
Like in a lower magic setting, they're really nice. Like, just off the top of my head, they have like Staff of Flowers. It's a quarterstaff. It's magical. It doesn't give you any type of bonus. It doesn't let you cast any spells. It's just that you can command the staff to bloom flowers. So it's just a piece of wood that blooms flowers. Like, and there's a lot of like more simple magic weapons in there that sort of gives like magic is all around, but magic isn't always necessarily like something that is going to make you more effective in combat.
Sure. Yeah, it adds to the other half of the D&D universe, which is you have combat and you have role playing. You know, what things are going to help you role play better. Because, I mean, sometimes D&Ders forget, D&D is a role play game.
4E killed the role play aspect.
Yeah.
Like, 4E was a role playing game, like ROLL playing game. Because that's all you did was roll dice and use your powers. And,
right.
So 5E is working to bring that back, and I think that they're doing a very good job.
They're doing a very good job. So that's Xanathar's Guide to Everything. That's everything I think we have to talk about. So
yeah, I mean, we could get into other stuff, but you have this book by now, I'm sure.
We hope you enjoyed our series here. Stay tuned for our next series, probably DM Spotlight, and we'll see you at the table.